Hello. Hello. Welcome everyone to our Taylor Swift themed LinkedIn Live. It's me. Hi, I'm the moderator. It's me. Is that too cheesy to start with? I'm Seth Borko, and I'm joined by our editor-in-chief, Sarah Kopit. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you, Seth. This is great. A little bit of a role reversal for me here, which is great. I'm so excited.
It's great to have you. Yeah, it's great to have you in the spotlight. So just a little bit of scene setting here, right? Sarah is the editor-in-chief of Skift News and Skift Publications, and she just wrote a great feature piece asking the question, is Taylor Swift actually the most powerful person in the travel industry? The Eras Tour has been a phenomenon. If you haven't seen it, it's live on Skift right now, and we're going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes chatting with Sarah about her piece, travel industry, and all things Taylor Swift. Two pieces of housekeeping, just real quick. First is that we will be taking audience Q&A. So if you want to ask myself or Sarah any questions about Taylor and travel, please put those in the chat. We will be taking audience Q&A. Secondly, this piece is available on our Skift Pro website. We'll talk more about it later, but if you don't have a subscription to Skift Pro, you can get 3 months free by using code Taylor. So you can go read that right now if you don't have access. Good journalism costs money, so support us, get 3 months free, and ask any questions you may have in the chat. So let's jump into it. Sarah, I'm going to ask you our first question. I want to just start 101, Swiftonomics 101. Yeah. What do people mean by the Taylor Swift economy, and just how big is this Eras Tour? How big is this thing?
Yeah, so I think you said it up at the top. It's a phenomenon. There's just the scope of the amount of money that Taylor Swift, and just I think we've really started talking about it with the Eras Tour, the amount that it's generating is just, it is epic. The numbers that people are throwing around now are about $5 million to the US economy. And so what that means is that's, what people think of as direct sales, like ticket sales and, maybe hotel rooms, airline flights to get to the tour, stuff like that. But then there's these kind of indirect things that people buy when they travel. And so for all of us who are in the travel industry on this call, we're all familiar with things like, maybe transportation or what you eat and drink when you are at the airport or at restaurants. You've got all sorts of, little things. And then you take it even maybe one more step removed. It's like, well, when you park your car at the parking garage, that parking attendant, has a wage that gets paid, and then he or she may go home and spend X number of dollars. So it's really kind of a, it's the economic cycle that is all driven. And for this, it's that maybe these dollars actually would not have even been spent
Yeah,
if not for
absolutely.
this tour. So that's one of the things that I think people are really honing in on with this particular tour is that, you know, there's always the feeling with maybe entertainment or travel. It's like, well, what piece of the market are you going to get with this? There are a lot of people that think, you know, this level of fandom and kind of traveling to 5 different shows or 6 different shows, like these dollars wouldn't have been necessarily spent on travel or tourism if not for Taylor Swift. So that is the Taylor Swift economy.
Yeah, and I think that's a great answer. I always think too, it's such an interesting point that you mentioned that like how $1 spent in the economy can get recycled multiple times. You pay someone a wage, they go, they eat at a restaurant, they pay someone else's wage, and it keeps going. And it wouldn't have come to some of these cities, right? I mean, we'll talk more about that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, exactly. So, you know, New York, LA, you know, London, Paris, Tokyo, all of these places, they, you know, these cities see people coming in and out of them almost no matter what. But it's the smaller cities. It's Indianapolis, it's Philadelphia, it's you know, your mid-level cities that really see just an economic juggernaut coming out of these places. Because, you know, for folks who, one of the other things that happened is that, you know, you can't, let's say you can't get tickets in your major city, but you know what, you're a fan, you really want to see the Eras Tour, so maybe you're going to drive for 4 or 5 hours or take a short flight or take the train or the bus or whatever to go to a much smaller city that maybe you've never been to, maybe
Yeah.
you would have never visited. And so it's those cities that really see a huge economic boon from Taylor, from a concert series like the Eras Tour.
So let's drill down into specifically not just Swiftonomics, but travel Swiftonomics, right? So
Right.
there is a big impact on the travel industry, and we are seeing a lot of people travel to see the Eras Tour. Why are people traveling to see this event?
So I think this one is a bit special, and you know, and while she's not the only one, like you saw this with Beyonce's Renaissance tour
Yeah,
as well. Um, this is a cultural experience. I mean, one of the reasons why we're even talking about this right now is because of what's going to happen this weekend, for example, at the Super Bowl. And just I said, you know, yesterday, I think that we're at like peak Taylor, at least I think. I can't imagine like the universe or the zeitgeist around a celebrity being any bigger than it is right now with her. But you know, this is something, it's one of those communal experiences. This is more than going to see the Eras Tour. This is something like going to see a concert because it's something to do on a Tuesday night. This
yeah,
is like, you know, 20 years from now, did you see it? You know, this is kids like begging their parents to go because then they can talk about it. This is a real cultural touch point. It's become this phenomenon that people want to be a part of. They want to be able to say, yes, like I went and I saw it.
yeah.
And I must say, I was not a Swiftie. I kind of am now. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time not only listening to some of the music, but I watched the Eras Tour on TV, and I mean, it was incredible. Like I'm like now a fan, right? I'm
It's
like an
hard not
unabashed.
to root for her. It's
It's
hard not to
hard
root
not
for her,
to.
right? And she's working so
Absolutely.
hard, and it's this huge production. It's pretty incredible.
It's, and you know, and all the people that I talked to for this piece who I said, oh yeah, well, I did just watch it on TV. So many of them had gone. I think most all of them actually, the people that I talked to for the piece had seen the show live, and they're like, Sarah, it isn't even close to what it is like to be there in person. So from what I hear, I haven't
You'll
seen
have
it
to fly
myself.
to Stockholm to see it now if you want to see it in person, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say apply somewhere. So so
How does
yeah.
this tie in? How does this tie into this broader trend of travel pegged to marquee events? I know that's something we've been reporting on a little bit. You want to maybe tell us a bit?
Yeah,
Tie
so,
in?
you know, I think there's always been a lot of that, but I really have to kind of go back to the pandemic. So
Yeah.
we're like 3-4 years out now. Um, I think there's still a lot of, emotional and residual feelings, especially from, grown-ups who very much remember the before times, right? So, this feeling that, wow, like I missed a couple of years of my life here.
Yeah.
And I now know what it is like to not be able to participate in some of these like tentpole events. It's like maybe before where it would have been, well, I'll get around to going to see, let's say I really want to go to the Super Bowl. It's on like my bucket list. So I'll get around to doing it. Well, maybe this year is the year where it's like, you know what? I'm going to buy tickets and I'm going to go now. I do think that we're still feeling some of that. You only live the
Yeah.
YOLO from the
YOLO.
pandemic. Yeah, the YOLO from the pandemic. So, and we really are seeing that in travel. Just the fact that travel came roaring back. It was like one of the very first
Mhm.
things to come back in spades. It just showed how much people want that connection. They want to get out there. They want to do things and see things and be a part of the world. And that's what is happening with these big tentpole events like the Olympics in Paris. A lot of them are they're sporting events, their concert series,
Yeah.
their these type of things. But not just that. I mean, we're doing some reporting right now in the Skift newsroom about the eclipse, for example. Like it's yet another communal experience that people are traveling around. So they can get a good spot to see it. So
And
it's
I think that second word you said there too, the communal experience is a piece. I think
yeah.
there's a FOMO. I've been missing YOLO, FOMO, all those good, but I think there's a communal piece to it too, where people
Yeah.
haven't been able to gather in this way and be with their communities, and they're able to do again.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I see some numbers in the chat. I think someone
Yeah.
said, "Did you say 5 million to the U.S. economy?" No, 5 billion with a B. It's
Billion
pretty
with a
incredible.
B.
It's double checked too. What is? Let's talk like sectors here. Hotels. So what is the
Yeah.
impact on the hotel industry? That's where my mind immediately goes. You've got people traveling from out of town. You've got people from the suburbs coming in to stay overnight. They're going to
Yeah.
stay at a hotel. What's the impact there?
So wherever Taylor goes, the city is sold out. Occupancy is like close to 100% when she is in town. That's what happens to hotels. I saw it time and again researching this. It was like, how is it? Like I was talking to Visit Indy for Indianapolis, and I was like, so what's the, how's it looking? For the weekend that she's going to be there. And he was like, oh, it was sold out and has been sold out since it was announced. And so for hotels, it's just a slam dunk, no brainer. They're just simply full. And one of the other things that was interesting that I learned when reporting out this story was that it's not just in the cities. The ring that it goes out is quite vast, half hour, 45 minutes outside of where the event is. Those hotels are also full. So hotels are cleaning up wherever Taylor appears.
Yeah, to use the jargon, lots of compression room nights when we're at 90% plus occupancy, and you can really jack up those rates.
Yeah.
Do we see people jacking up rates? I don't know.
I think when they can. I also the another thing that I learned is, the Swifties are, well, for one thing, they're young. So, I mean, there are a lot of Gen X Swifties. I talk to a lot of them too. But this is a group and a crowd that is very comfortable with computers, very comfortable with online, booking. And so when I talked to some short-term rental owners, they were saying that they actually didn't really see much of a windfall because the Swifties were so fast. See, nobody knows where the tour is coming ahead of time until it's announced. And then it's announced, and all of a sudden, like one guy said, he's like, they booked literally, Sarah, within seconds.
Yeah, because
so they didn't get to. So I would assume that the hotels, There's probably some opportunity for some of them to increase their prices, but I think the hotels were also booked right
That's
away.
kind of, I mean, in one, it's kind of nice. You don't want
Yeah.
to take too much advantage of an idealistic 15-year-old
Yeah.
Swiftie. On the other hand, I think it's maybe a lesson in like some of these more dynamic revenue pricing systems, where if you're a hotel and you can see that demand coming in, you can move your prices, whereas maybe the short-term rentals were not as plugged in. I don't know. I don't want
Yeah.
to speak negatively.
Well, I mean, yeah, the dynamic pricing models just don't move. They don't move as fast as the Swifties. Let me just put it that way.
That's
The
right.
Swifties are faster. Yeah.
Let's talk about short-term rentals too, because there was a big
Yeah.
group travel aspect to this, right? Like people would go
Yeah.
with friends, with families, and that's a short-term rental sweet spot, right?
Absolutely, because you've got families, right? Like the Swifties, I mean, many are adults, but many are teenagers and kids and tweens. And so, they can't go by themselves. So mom and dad come along too. And so it really has been a adventure or a trip for the whole family. I talked to one family, the folks that from Canada who led the piece. This I thought it was perfect. I thought it was the perfect example of what is happening with this tour. So you have a family of 5, mom, dad, 3 daughters, all Swifties. Girls really wanted to go see the Eras Tour. They live in Toronto. They tried to get tickets, could not get tickets. I mean, this is the story that plays out over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't get tickets. Went with Ticketmaster. Went on to StubHub. They said the tickets were going rate for, the worst seats in the house were like $2,000. Dad's like, I'm not paying that. And so he started to get creative, he's like, well, we're going to go on vacation. Like, where should we go? And he started looking and found tickets in Rio in Brazil, somewhere where he said he had always wanted to go. Tickets were like about $200 or Canadian dollars, I suppose, for him. And, so that was far more palatable. And he's like, I'm going to spend the same amount on, an international long haul vacation, with all the trimmings of what that entails, right? Like long haul flights, vacation, or food and beverage, rides, like the entire ecosystem that goes around that trip. So they spent that money on a 10-day South American adventure through Rio and Brazil, and went to see Taylor Swift there. And they said it was absolutely amazing. It was an amazing experience. So.
And that ties back to that earlier point you were saying, how this is incremental revenue for many of these cities, because this family, they were not planning their trip to Rio before the Eras Tour.
No.
Maybe they were going to spend that money at some point in their local economy. Instead, it gets spent in the Rio tourism economy, and it boosts that economy there.
Right. And he said, he's like, I kind of have always wanted to go to Rio, but it never would have occurred to me.
He kind of needed
the family there,
too, right?
Yes.
The Eras Tour was the catalyst to take a 2-week group tour to long haul to Brazil.
Exactly.
So yeah, you actually mentioned Indy. I love that anecdote. It's a little buried a little deeper in the report, and so make sure you read the whole story. But you had this great anecdote from Indianapolis, which, by the way, I hear is an amazing city, but I've never been. Admittedly, not particularly on my radar. And you were talking to their DMO, and he said, "Look, to us, the Eras Tour was like a stamp of approval. Like we have made it. We have cultural cachet. Are you seeing Rio, Indianapolis? Are you seeing cities able to kind of jumpstart long-term growth because they can continue on from the Eras Tour?"
Absolutely. And it's because there's just so much money that comes into these economies. That's exactly what they told me. They said that this is the start of, something bigger and more extensive for them. And, people. So when somebody goes to an Indianapolis and maybe has never been there before, and they like what they see, let's say they're, 3 or 4 hours away, chances are maybe they'll go back, right? And so it's something that has kickstarted a lot of economic growth for maybe the smaller cities that maybe don't get as much love from, the major tours all the time.
And maybe it helps diversify them, kind of like the NFL, where they're getting this new audience. I think Indianapolis has a lot of race car fans that go there regularly. But
absolutely,
Swifties, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, and I mean, just to bring that up, I mean, that's another reason why we are at peak Taylor. I think because the crossover with the NFL, because of her relationship with Travis Kelsey, it's like this lightning in a bottle that marketers and businesses couldn't even, like, in their wildest dreams, they couldn't even like
There we
hope
go. Good
that
reference.
something
Good
like,
reference.
yeah,
Yep.
that something like this could actually happen. And I asked some folks who were advertising in the Super
Mhm.
Bowl. So how do you feel about Taylor Swift? And like, I mean, it was like a chuckle and a grin. Just maybe not wanting to give away just how excited they all are for this Super Bowl. I predict. I I am not a huge football fan. I
Mhm.
probably would not have watched the Super Bowl. I usually am like, oh, is that this weekend? Like, I'm that person. I'm going to watch the Super Bowl this
Oh yeah,
weekend.
I
You
am
know?
too. I'm
Yeah.
yeah. It's must watch. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm curious how many like extra fans or where it comes in ratings wise. I bet it'll be, if they can get me. I guess this is my thinking. If they can get me to watch, they can get anybody to watch. So,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it says a lot about you too, Sarah. But yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
guess
it's gonna be.
I
It's probably. I think it's gonna be like one of the. And you made a great point too, that that some of these ad rates were locked in before the Chiefs were in it.
before, yeah, like they were all sold out in November, and we didn't know any of this was going to happen then.
Yeah, so we just
So
had that graphic up. Actually, we can pull it back up for just a second. Of Taylor's got to make it from Tokyo to Las Vegas. We've done the math. We've done the
yeah.
math. We feel confident she can make it. She'll be there.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's interesting too. I'm If you've missed it, like, this is again where you just know you've crossed over into something wholly different. The Japanese embassy put out an official statement, talking about how, you know, people in Tokyo, fear not, like, go enjoy the concert, enjoy. She can get back. Like, we're all gonna revel in this moment.
yeah.
Taylor's gonna be here, and then she's gonna be there, and it's all gonna be good. Don't worry. So yeah.
Well, I was gonna just pick up a couple of audience questions,
Yeah,
and
let's
with
absolutely.
the flight from Tokyo to Las Vegas, she's gonna fly in her private jet, and I think I saw a question there about
Yes.
there's this whole story there. She's flying private a lot. Like, does Taylor have some environmental karma coming for her, or
So, I think that there's been a lot written about this. We actually are going to put something out, if not today, very soon, about private jets and their carbon emissions. Taylor and her private jet habit, I suppose, if you want to call it that. I mean, she was definitely like at the very top of all the lists of polluters, I suppose, for folks who keep track of these things, mostly because of the tour, but then going back and forth to all of the NFL games from wherever she was in the world. She believes in carbon credits, carbon offsets. That's how she does it. But yeah, I would say, there are only a few points of controversy around Taylor Swift, or at least, ones that don't have to deal with like gossip and boyfriends and all that kind of stuff. But this is probably the biggest, is the
yeah?
environmental impact of her private jets.
Yeah, I think there's a piece to it too where, I mean, I don't want to dismiss it, but like, we talk about this economic impact, like, you know, she can't do all these tour stops without her private
Right.
jet is also a
Right.
reality too, I think, if we're being honest,
Exactly.
and so
Yeah.
um yeah, I wanted to ask about, there was some we were kind of talking about how big this is. I think I saw a question, and I'm not sure if it's in here, like, can there be an Eras 2.0? Like, would we ever see? You think we could ever see something like this again? Yeah, Haley asked this question. Could there
Yeah,
be Eras 2.0?
I kind of, it's almost like, I would say yes, most definitely there could be, and there probably will be, just because, this is the rule of economics, right? When something makes this much money, they're probably going to do it again. Um, can you replicate kind of the specialness that goes into like what's happening right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can do that. I think that, it's like the sequel, phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for,
Unless you're the
Terminator
Godfather
2,
or
except for,
Aliens. Yeah, exactly. There are those like exceptions, but I don't
this
know.
is a
And
pretty special moment, right? I think.
yeah, exactly.
Do you,
So
do you see that cities and travel businesses are able to see sustained growth after the Eras Tour leaves? That's an interesting question.
I think it depends upon the city,
Yeah.
right? It depends upon how they are equipped to handle change and handle growth. What is their strategy, and can they like build upon this? I think that any small city that's looking for that, just that boost, that like it's like
Mhm.
we just need to like to get people here and then it's going to take off, of course. But if there will also be cities who don't have that infrastructure, they don't have that support, and then maybe not so much. But I think it has a lot to do with the plans that place has already had built into their economic future.
The infrastructure piece of it is so huge. I think that's such a great point because we did estimate that like a huge amount of the indirect spend on travel is things like mass transit, public transit. I think Jared Alster in the chat had this comment about how, unlike the Super Bowl, cities get this tour. Unlike the Olympics, where you need to build the stadium, cities get
Right.
this tour with the infrastructure they have in place. And I was just thinking, I see all these memes on Twitter about how there's going to be a World Cup final in New York, New Jersey, but New Jersey, and
Yeah.
everyone's joking about how all the Europeans are going to get to use our New Jersey transit infrastructure and what that's going to look, what that may or may not look
We've
like.
got 2 years. 2 years. We got 2 years to figure it out.
I think I saw a couple of comments, and there's sort of a question here about the price of Ticketmaster. I think that's an interesting one. Ticketmaster kind of gets mentioned sometimes. There's this huge junk fee push right now. It gets mentioned in the same breath as Expedia, as airlines, all these junk fees, all these online booking fees, this crazy mass. Like, could we see progress on like the junk? Is Taylor going to give us progress on the junk fee stuff as well? Is there a knock-on effect to travel from the Ticketmaster? Let's call it.
I mean, the Fed chair talked a little bit about this, about how Taylor Swift did more to support and really grow good anti-monopolists, than anything she ever could. I think so. I mean, it really, for those people who didn't already know about it or who weren't kind of intimately familiar with this type of thing, I think that Taylor Swift and the Eras Tour and Ticketmaster shutting down and all of the kind of the hearings and attention that got really showed a lot. Although truth be told, Ticketmaster has, it's been a long time coming, I suppose. Like, I feel like we've been talking about Ticketmaster and it's like horrible fees. Like, I remember Metallica. Like, it's been like, this has been around for a long time. But they were
and yet they got a lot of their inspiration from the airline industry, if you ask me. Like dynamic pricing, revenue management, as we call it. But Malvika has a question for you about average trip length in concert destinations, and I think this is a mixed bag. What have you heard there? Like,
so what I have heard from like the DMOs and the tourism boards is that, especially when it's a weekend, so like talking about Indianapolis again, they really said that people were coming in for the whole weekend. It was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they were making a trip out of it. And it kind of makes sense. Like, depending upon how much they paid for those tickets, like, it's not like a one night event, right? Like, this is their vacation. And so they're going to stay. So especially for weekend tours, like people are staying for like the whole, like for a 3 or 4 day extravaganza.
And you even saw, you led with this anecdote, but you even saw tour operators and travel advisors build in like 4, 5, 7 day packages around the tour, right?
Yeah. It's like everybody's trying to get a piece. Hey, capitalism. I'm a free market capitalist, so more power to you. But yeah, everybody's trying to kind of get their slice.
So you wrote this great story. This is such a fun topic. We were talking about there's this famous saying for writers, you got to kill your darlings, right? You make the story stronger by cutting. But since we've got this moment here to chat, this is a great format for it. Were there any fun moments from your reporting that you just didn't fit in the story, but that are just fun stories you could share with us?
Oh, I mean, some of the short-term rental owners, I suppose these aren't necessarily fun stories, but like they just talked about how they lost or they didn't get to partake in this. So there was a lot of just interesting stories or interesting calls I had with short-term rental owners who were like, no, I didn't make any money. I know, but they were, yeah, and they said, and it was interesting, like, and they all said, they're like, well, we didn't feel like, yeah, we would have gotten penalized by Airbnb or whatever, but we didn't feel that it was right to.
All right, well, you gotta respect them.
So I respected that. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I would have taken the hit and quadrupled my prices. I don't know, but they didn't. Yeah.
Well, I mean, which is back. At least there's still some moral compass in the short-term rental industry.
Exactly.
I'm happy to hear that.
Well, these are so much of the short-term rental industry is still individual hosts. I mean,
yes.
There are some that are bigger management companies now that do it for a full-on business, but most of them are mom and pops. So.
Spot on. Yeah, most of them are 90% plus are individual hosts, right? Well, we've got a question here. I think we're coming towards the end. We're at 30 minutes.
We are. Yeah.
We got the hard hitting. This is hard hitting journalism. So Sarah, what's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
So I think it's Blank Space.
Blank Space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Maybe it's classic.
Yeah.
What's yours?
No, I'm a big Bad Blood fan. I love that was her pop transition, that album, when she went from country to pop. That was when I put it on my radar.
Yeah. I read we have Jake Gyllenhaal to thank for that. That was part of my also in-depth reporting.
Yes, real in-depth reporting. Yeah. And then we've got another big this new album, we've got one guy to thank for this big album, I think, too. So we've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Did you have another one, or did your daughters have one, or you're going to share one?
No, okay. I'm good. We're gonna leave it with that.
We're gonna leave it with that. Perfect. So we got Blank Space, we got and we got Bad Blood. Look, this has been a great session. Thank you for writing this piece. I want to remind everyone in the audience that you can sign up for a promo for Skift Pro. We have code Taylor for a free 3 months. So when you go to sign up, there will be a blank space in the sign up area where you can enter promo code Taylor and get 3 months free. And I very much encourage you to follow the QR code, follow the link in the chat. If you have any more questions, ask us, and me and Sarah will both be watching, along with many of you watching the Super Bowl, rooting for the Chiefs, and following the Taylor Swift travel economy. So thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.